Jessica, modeling shows that except for in Cibola County, where there's the prison outbreak, southeastern New Mexico is the only part of the state where the prevalence of cases is still going up. What's going on there? How is the virus being spread in that part of the state?
That is a really great question. And it's one of the things that we go to a number of different sources to try to figure out. We look at what's happening within our community, and we know that there has been a disregard for some of the requirements, social distancing, mask wearing that have been put in place by the governor, this particular part of the state. And we also know that culturally as well in southeastern New Mexico, we are prone to large gatherings, we're prone to large families, we're prone to interaction. And so the spread of the virus is actually something that is pretty in line with that. Now, we did expect, though we had been pretty low in numbers at the beginning of all of this since March, we did expect that there would be a time when those numbers of cases did increase. So it's not unexpected. I think that we are all pretty concerned with the rate at which it's been happening. Since those numbers went up. Eddy County, for example, stands at just a little over 200 cases at the moment. And all of that has happened since the middle of July. So we're relatively quick when it comes to the spread of coronavirus in our communities.
So let's talk about Lee County and the Lee County Sheriff's Office. Lee County is one of the 3 counties in southeastern New Mexico that's seeing the highest number of cases, and the Lee County Sheriff's Office has been not really happy about the public health order. Can you talk about that and what's happening with that lawsuit?
Well, I think it's important to also note that it's not just Lee County who's been unhappy with some of the requirements put into place. That's pretty much the prevailing attitude in this part of the state. For Lee County particularly, the controversy there is that the local law enforcement at all levels, that be county and city of Hobbs and its minor municipalities, have decided that, that the orders are unconstitutional, first off, and that they are impossible to enforce. Lee County Sheriff's deputies have gone so far as to sit inside an indoor dining restaurant and have lunch in defiance of the governor's orders to close indoor dining. Now, that particular lawsuit is interesting because it really is in my opinion, the next step into what can we do to make sure that as those numbers are increasing within Lee County itself, that everything is being done to prevent the continual spread. Holding somebody accountable is extremely important for the changes that are happening when it comes to the numbers and the type of spread within that community.
So can you talk a little bit more about what you mentioned as like a resistance in that part of the state to some of the aspects of this order? Like, what is that about, and kind of why does that manifest itself in southeastern New Mexico?
I think it's the next step in what has been a long-standing dispute between southern New Mexico and northern New Mexico. The feeling is that we're not heard when it comes to matters of importance in the northern part of the state, where a majority of the governance is done. Southern New Mexico's reaction to the mandates, the health safety orders that have been put in place have been pretty strong. The overall, those first steps were, we're not going to enforce it. It's unenforceable. It doesn't make sense for our businesses here. It doesn't make sense for communities that have been lightly, at the very beginning, lightly impacted by this disease, by this pandemic. So that was the prevailing attitude then. And we are starting to see a stronger shift towards, can we have a seat at the table? Can we talk about how to do all of these safety things that you're talking about, but in a way that makes sense for our communities in Southeast New Mexico? And we're not seeing, I think the communities here aren't seeing a response to that request. And so they're taking it to the next level, which is, if we don't get that seat at the table, then we're going to just go ahead and openly define these, because it doesn't, as I said before, it doesn't make sense for our economies, for our communities.
So a lot of these measures, whether it's wearing masks or limiting public gatherings, are really focused on stopping the spread. And, if you're positive whether you're asymptomatic or symptomatic, and preventing the spread to other people within your community. And so I'm curious, what if people don't want to be wearing masks, or they want to be dining indoors, or they don't want to be complying with these orders? What are some other solutions people are suggesting for stopping and slowing the spread of the virus?
That's an interesting question. Let me take a step back and just address a portion of that, which is it's not necessarily that these measures won't stop the spread of the virus. It's that these measures can be done safely while reopening those aspects of our economies, restaurants specifically in this case, while allowing people to go into our small businesses, into our small Main Street shops. Those owners, those business owners, those entrepreneurs are smart enough to know what is a safe environment within their own business. So back to that major part of that question is what else can be done? I think beyond social distancing and mask wearing and just being really what we call COVID safe, right? Washing your hands, using sanitizer. The larger argument is if you know that you are at risk, if you're among those risk categories, if you know that you are a person who has a health issue that might put you at a greater risk of contracting the disease with symptoms that are above and beyond a normal contraction, or if you're in a household or sharing a space with somebody like that, those are the people who should be empowered themselves individually to make the choice to either go out or stay home, wear a mask or not wear a mask.
So as you're grappling with all sorts of different issues, I'm curious as editor, what your strategy is for covering COVID in addition to everything else that you have to cover on a day-to-day basis.
Right. So COVID has taken over everybody's lives recently, and we hear that pretty well across the board at all of our southeastern New Mexico properties. That includes, the newspapers over at Hobbs, the newspapers in Alamogordo and Ruidoso. The strategy has been to keep it at a local level. We really want to capture the stories of those who are every day in the trenches. It's a bit of a cliche, but it's true. One of my favorite types of stories to read are those local business stories where we talk to the business owners, we talk to the entrepreneurs, we talk to the local government leaders. What are they doing? How are they dealing? What are some of the challenges they face? Largely as well, because we are such a focus point in the state when it comes to openly questioning the restrictions and the requirements put into place, it's especially important to capture that local voice because we want to be able to represent the reasoning and the beliefs behind that viewpoint to the rest of the state.
Well, thank you, Jessica, to you and your staff for capturing those local voices and for joining us today. Stay safe.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.